Hi there, and welcome to Tom's Warhammer Minis. The Lord of Poxes is a lumbering warrior who strides slowly into battle amidst spore-fit clouds of plague, while the turbines on his back provide a Nurgle veil of protection for his brothers, as well as stealing the life from those who don't embrace the gift of Grandfather Nurgle. This new miniature is truly incredible, with boss-like vibes from video games. He was launched early this year in a Death Guard box. Now, I'm very lucky to have had his single release sent to me early. It builds perfectly and has the potential for some incredible paint schemes. I'm really pleased to show mine off today. In this tutorial, I'll be contrast painting the model to box art style. Now, other YouTubers have done this already, but my colour scheme is a lot simpler and matches the colours exactly. And you'll see in the first step, I matched the green in one coat. Now, I call this to be on par with Death Guard green. And it's important to note it absolutely is that box art green, but it's not the actual Death Guard green paint. That's traditional of the Eavy Metal team, that they don't use the colours you think they do. And should you make a mistake in painting it, then I'd recommend a mix of Ogrin camo and Krieg khaki to match what I've done. But the beauty of Nurgle is you can fix any mistakes with grime effects. I'll also be showcasing the perfect way to apply Nailac oxide. Now, this is an intense verdigris that can easily spoil and ruin details rather than enhancing them, and I have a special mix for that, and it's an absolute game changer when painting with it. So without further ado, grab your brushes, grab your paints, and let's get hobbying. Alrighty then, let's get started on our Lord of Poxes, and I'm really looking forward to painting this model up. It is incredible. Now, to begin with, just to let you know, I have primed it in White Scar. The overall finish that I'm going to try and go for is going to be very similar to the box art. It's going to be dirty, it's going to be grimy, but I want it to be a bright, dirty, grimy, grungy look. So to begin with, we're going to start on the Death Guard green armour. Now, the looks of it, it looks like I've painted Death Guard green, but as you know, I'm a contrast-only painter, and I've created a rather special and very unique mix for this. It's a 5-part ratio, which I put in the Citadel palette. Now, it's going to be 2 parts Gut Ripper Flesh, 2 parts Militarum Green, and 1 part Lamy Medium. Going to mix it and stir it together, and you're going to get a very dark looking green. Of course, once you paint it on, it's going to end up looking like this. Now, you don't want to go too heavy on the brush. Always start at the top, work your way down. The Lamy Medium is going to really thin it down, but also help with the flow. So over all these flat armor panels, you shouldn't get too much pooling at all, except for the natural recesses is what we need. The Militarum Green is going to give that nice recess shading, but it's the Gut Ripper Flesh that is the secret ingredient here, because it's that green that has the base coat thickness, while the Militarum Green has the natural contrast effect. Combine them together with the Lamy Medium, you end up with this. So take your time, paint it all over, move it around so it doesn't pool, and just take one section at a time. Shouldn't take you more than 10 minutes just to paint all of this. Nice and simple. Now, as I'm planning the colours, I'm in a bit of a dilemma because there's so many ways we could go about making Death Guard armour really grungy and dirty. Now, I am going to focus on the box art because that's what I really want to impress here, and I really want to start enhancing that green. Now, we could decide to darken the armour. I could paint another layer of that base mix that I did, but that's going to just make it really dark. And what I really want to do is just enhance the green, and the best way to do this is by shade paints. If you get the right shade paint, it enriches the colour rather than changing it. And of course, we want to use a bit of Lamy Medium too, because of all the flat armour panels, we don't want unnecessary pooling. Colour I've used is a Phonian Camo shade. This is a real dark, very living green, which is perfect for the Death Guard, so they're odd sort of living, but it's appropriate. And I thin this down ever so slightly, so it's 2 parts of Phonian Camo shade, 1 part Lamy Medium to help with that flow. And really, I'm just painting it all over. It doesn't really change the colour, it just shifts it ever so slightly to make it richer. But the main focus is we're settling it neatly into the recesses, not pooling heavily. It's just going to really make our Death Guard armour look much more effective. So take your time, apply the mix like we did before, nice and thin, and let it dry fully. Next up, following the box art, and while our green is drying, We're going to focus on the skin cloak that he is wearing, and there are two different ones. You've got the one on top of the backpack and the one that goes around the entirety of his body, and we're going to focus on that one first. Nice and simply on the insides, the front, the outsides, all over, not the top one, just the bottom one, soul bright grey. Haven't finished down, just paint it nice and neatly, check it's not pooling, just move the paint around as quick as you can and let it settle in naturally for this look. We're going to dirty it up later, but that's the nearest base coat colour that matches the box art. The top cloak skin thing is quite a hard colour to work out. It's definitely not a contrast paint that will match it, so I've had to go down the shade route. And there's no particular one shade that works. So here's a little secret. You can actually mix shades together. So to match the box art colour, it's a simple 2 shades mixed in a palette together in a 1-to-1 ratio. And the colours I've used, Agrak Surf shade and Targor Raid shade. Put them in a palette, 1-to-1 ratio, mix it well together, and just like we did before, apply it all over, keeping it nice and flowing and even, letting bits settle into the recesses, and that's what you'll end up with, just like the box art. And next up, we are doing a couple more details here. Let's start with the great sword handle, and the colour I've used here is Flesh Tearers Red. Not thinned down, just paint it on, but make sure we're being super careful and neat. Doesn't matter if we catch the great sword, because that's going to be painted in metallics later. But we don't want to catch the green, we don't want to catch the soul bright grey. And as you can also see, I have painted the pistol as well as the eye lenses, and the colour I've used here is Gryph-hound Orange. It's the classic plasma glow that we see on Death Guard miniatures. But if you have seen my tutorials before, you know that sometimes I like to avoid doing a highlight. When we look at the box art, there has a really nice glow effect around the coils as well as the energy vents here. Now normally I am rubbish at doing those in highlights, so what I'm going to showcase here is a sort of lazy way, but it's quite clever. We're going to be painting black over it later, but for now we're just going to prep it all by painting it in orange. Next up, it's time to focus on those big bulging veins. Now we've got 2 different colour schemes here, the big long ones that connect to the backpack and the one that's in the chest cavity. Because we can see on the box art they are different colours. So for the big ones, these purplish pink ones, the colour I've used here is Sigfold Burgundy, and I thin this down in a 1-to-1 ratio with Lahmian Medium. And like we do before with contrast painting, start at the top, work your way down. Gravity's going to pull it anyway, so we want to work with the flow and not have pooling. Now for the ones in the centre, it is a tricky pink. You could go down the Caribou Crimson route, and that would work. But I wanted to have that real light pink effect. So the colour I've gone for is Doomfire Magenta. Now this is the wrong colour, because if you paint this on naturally, it is extreme hot pink. And we need to thin this down heavily. So again, it's with Lahmian Medium. In the smallest part of that palette is where I'd recommend. And we're talking a very small drop of this to about 12 parts Lahmian Medium to get that real thin pale pink consistency. And if it's not quite this consistency, just quickly dry the brush, wash it off, and then use the damp brush, get rid of the paint you've applied, just thin it down a bit more. That's what I had to do for this one. Once it's done, just let it dry, and we'll move on to the next stage. Next up, we're going to shade those previous details a bit further, but we're also going to focus on that central bit of skin-like flesh that's covering his stomach area. And the colour I'm using here is Magos Purple, thinned down into a 1-to-1 ratio with Lahmian Medium. Now start with the skin torso bit. I've applied it into the corners, painted it downwards, wash your brush, and I feathered it out. Now it's down to you how pinky purpley you want it to be. I've done it as similar as I wanted to the box art. And I've also used this mix just to paint over the intestines, both the Sigfold Burgundy ones as well as the Doomfire Magenta ones. It just won't shift the colour much, it just gives it a bit more definition. Next up, it's time to focus on some of the black details, and I'm not doing them all yet, just some of them. And the colour that I'm using here is Black Legion in its pure form. Quite simply, all this leather wrapping that you can see around the greatsword that connects to the backpack is just painted in Black Legion. There's a little cable that's just here. I painted that in Black Legion. And I have done two here. It is a mistake. The one on the left is going to be like the one on the right. It is meant to be bronze, but the one in the middle is Black Legion as well. So just paint those in Black Legion. Take your time. And again, once we get to these other details, we do need to be very careful and very neat. Next up, completing our black detail colouring, we're taking Black Templar. Different shade of black, and we've got different uses for it. So there's one piece of soft sealed armour that we can see on the Space Marine, and it's right there. It's the only one I could find. I've also used this to paint in the coils on the head, and also for the tubing. You see in the box art, you've got black staining here and here. It's basically both ends on both sides. Simply paint it in there, paint it upwards, dry your brush, and while it's damp, just feather it out. As you can see, I've also placed it on the plasma pistol, like I said I was going to do. I just haven't painted the edge highlight here, all on the vents. Leaving that clear, we're going to turn that into a glow later on. Nice and simple, we can move on to some metallic details next. As is tradition, you paint something, you move on to the next stage, and then you spot, guess what, there's more of that Black Templar to do. And it's just a couple of other soft armour sections of the seal. So there's just one here right on his elbow, and then both in this part of their wrist on both sides. So you just subtly see it just very slightly there. But with that done, we can move on to our metallic details, and the first colour we're going to use is Iron Warriors. Now, it's quite hard in the sense that when you look at the box art image on the website, there is no 360, and that would really help. But essentially, any little chains, putting it on there, the metallic part of the gun. When you look at the box art, you can just see there are a couple of metal sections, like this piece here, just the vent and the outer ring there. All of the cabling here on the piping. Vent on his mask. So yeah, I'll do a little 360. Just give you a little idea of where I've placed them all. Most of it straightforward and common sense. Again, you could choose where you want to apply it. Our Lord of Poxes has two different bronze tones. You've got the classic Balthazar gold that we see on the armour trim, but there's also a darker one which is mostly seen on the backpack, as well as the instrument that's on the front of him. The colour that I'm using here is Castellax Bronze. It is a layer paint. I find this to be quite thin, so I applied two thin coats of this colour on those areas. It'll just create a nice subtle tonal difference. And next up, like I mentioned, we're using Balthazar Gold. Quite simply, this is all the other remaining details around the model. So the armour trim on the head, the knee pads, as well as the tip of the great sword. But I've also painted this over the tiny little rivets, just little dots. There's not too many, but they are scattered around. So there's on the chest plate, the knee pads, the legs, and the backpack. Just take your time, dot them all. It's going to make a nice, great difference. Next up, I've taken some Basilicum Grey and I've thinned it down ever so slightly. Not a real ratio here, it's just a drop of Lamy Medium to help with the flow, and I've painted this over the rock on the base that he's standing on. I had a bit of spare mix from the earlier which I used, which was a Targal Raid shade in the Agrax, and I've applied this over the Sterling mud that I applied earlier. You don't have to apply that mix, apply whichever one you want. I just had it to hand, made sense at the time. And now it's time to apply some shading to our details. Now for all of the metallics, I've done one overall colour. It's Death Guard. They're grungy. Agrax Earthshade. That brown tint will really help just to darken them down, but give that grimy effect. Nice and simple. But I've also taken some Nuln Oil, and I've applied this in two different areas over all of the black details. So all those ropes and wraps that are holding the great sword together, as well as the red on the sword. It just helps to settle into those recesses more, it just makes it more effective. And we just got one more colour to apply, and then our model will be battle ready. Now so far I'm absolutely loving what I've done with the Nurgle model. It is looking awesome, But no true Nurgle Death Guard warrior is going to be clean. Let's just face it, it's Nurgle. So we want to make that armour slightly grungy. I don't want to overdo it because we've done a really nice amount so far, and too much can just go overboard. But the colour I'm using here is Nazdreg Yellow. I've not thinned it down, I'm just taking a small airbrush and with the tiniest amount on the tip, I've taken it round each rivet and just slowly dragged it down. If there's too much on it, we can just wash our brush and with a damp brush feather out those details. There are natural marks and bits of recesses around the armour, and we can apply it in there too. And what I've also done is I've started to prep the sword a little bit more. It's a bit hard to see here, but what I've done, rather than just painting it straight onto the sword, I've just dabbed it around, almost like a stippling effect in random different areas. It is all across all over it, but it's not completely over. I've done the same on the other side too. It's just going to start building up that rusted effect. And next up, exactly like I did with the Nazdreg Yellow on the sword, I'm taking Gore Grunter Fur and just small amounts of stippling it on just in random areas. It's not thinned down, we just want it as random and as dirty as possible. And with that done, our model is officially battle ready. And it looks absolutely incredible. I really, really love it. But I'm not leaving it there. We're taking it to the next step. We're going to apply some highlights and we're going to make this model stand out beautifully. Alrighty then, let's start with some highlights. And first we're doing the green armour. And nice and simply, it is rather bright already. The green isn't actual Death Guard green. It is a lot brighter. We're almost at that Ogre camo stage. So the highlight I've gone with here is Krieg Khaki. It's very subtle, but when you really look at it, it is noticeable. Just take your time. There aren't too many edge highlights to do. Just pick them all out, as many as you want to. Next up is the white cloak. This is not the top part, just the bottom one. Because it's white scar, we only did Soul Black Grey. We could just highlight it up again with white scar. I've done the same for the front part as well. I have done a bit of freehanding, copying the box art. I have done that sort of fly-like pattern. It's mostly straight lines, and the colour matching here is Abaddon Black. Now, if you do make a mistake, and I did, I need to do a little bit of relayering on the armour. The nearest colour, and it's not quite the same, but it is Ogre camo. So if you do get any touch-ups, you can just fix it with a bit of Ogre camo, and at the end of the day, we can always add browns, oranges, grime, slime. It's Nurgle. We can cover up our mistakes and make it look very effective. Next up, I'm focusing on the greys, and there's two different ones that I'm going to be using here. One for the ropes and one for the plasma pistol. So let's start with the ropes, as well as the little cabling on the backpack. And the colour I've used here that matches the box art is Thunderhawk Blue. There isn't really much blue on this model, so it just helps to really create some nice contrasting colouring effects. Take your time, just edge highlight them. I've also used that colour on the soft joints. Next up is Dawnstone. Now when you look at the box art, it's got some very bright highlights in the grey. And if you want to go down that route, you'd use Administratum Grey, because that's going to be a lot brighter. I wanted it to be more subtle, because it's going to help for me to make the orange pop out even more. So Dawnstone's the colour I've used here, just a few edge highlights and picking out the rivets. Focusing on the skin type cloth on the backpack, the colour I've used to highlight is Pallid Witch Flesh. Really matches the Agrax Nerve shade and the Targal Raid shade nicely. Now it's time to focus on the intestinal parts. Now for the Sigfold Burgundy ones, you can see there are little edges and little recesses. And the highlights that I've used is Pink Horror. You don't need too much, it's nice and subtle and gets the job done. For the darker bits, on the box art, they are highlighted in a grey, but I wanted to go down the purple route. It matches the tone of the pinks. The colour I've used is Slanesh Grey. Just like the Pink Horror, we're going just to the tips, and you'll find it's more on these sections here. There is just a little bit on here. There isn't really much on that side. And lastly, for the bright pink ones, you could go down the Wraithbone route, but I wanted to stick with pink. I've just done a simple edge highlight of full grim pink, mainly where the light hits, just on the front centre, going up and down and down and down. Next up, for the sword wrapping that we painted in Flesh Tearers red, we just want simple edge highlights of Wild Rider red. It's going to be quite bright, quite vivid, and it's going to pick out each section. Then we're going to focus on our orange details. To begin with, just a note for the eyes, I did do, just about seeable, a small dot in the corners of white scar. But the edge highlight, as well as the plasma coils, as well as the main edge for that glow, I've taken Lugganath orange. It's not going to be end for the gun, we're going to do something next, but that's the highlight colour that I've used. Next up, I've highlighted our silver. And the colour I've used here is Ironbreaker. I've done simple edge highlights on all the pieces. On the ropes that hold the greatsword, there's a couple of little rivets that I've picked out too. And for the greatsword itself, I have highlighted it. It's going to look very odd, very bright indeed. But don't worry, we're going to add to it in a minute to really nurgle-fy it. Take your time, just pick them all out. And next up, it's time to highlight all of our bronze details, and that's the Castellax bronze as well as the Balthasar gold. We're using the same highlight, and the one I've used is Sycorax bronze. Once again, just take your time, do nice edge highlighting all around, picking out the rivets on the armour. Nice and simple. It's time to add some subtle verdigris to our bronze armour. Now, if you're like me, you know that the classic paint that Games Workshop offer is Lilac Oxide, except in its purest form, even if you thin it down, it is extremely intense as a colour. And when you look at the box art, it is very subtle. So I'm going to teach you a little mix that's going to really help here. So take 1 part Lilac Oxide and take 2 parts Briar Queen Chill. They're virtually the same colour. Mix them together. It's going to turn the Lilac Oxide into a more contrast paint, but still keeping the properties of the Lilac Oxide. And just a small amount on your brush, just apply it on around the rivets. I've just copied the box art. Just apply it around. It is there. It is subtle. It doesn't overpower. It does exactly what the Eavy Metal team do in the most simplest way possible. And it really adds to the effect of the Death Guard. And going back to our orange, it's time to apply that glow. Now I'm using an air paint here, Pyroclast Orange Clear, but I'm not using an airbrush, we're just applying it by hand. Now, if you've ever used the clear paints, they are glossy. So essentially it is hard coat, but it's not hard coat, it is an orange version, and it's just going to really add to the glow effect of the pistol. I've applied it on the eyes too, I've applied it on the vents. Air paints do take a lot longer to dry, so just be sure not to knock it in the meantime. Next up, we're focusing on all the silver details, but mostly the greatsword. We really want to start griming it down and making it rusty. I've taken 2 colours here, Scrag Brown and Troll Slayer Orange. Nice and simply, put them into a palette, thin them heavily down with Lamy Medium. I prefer Lamy Medium because it makes it less chalky, and you'll know what I mean if you've ever applied too much water. Thin it down to a roughly milky consistency, and then there's no logic here, just apply it on completely randomly. I've done this across all the silver details, just to give that grime and rust effect. It's going to look a bit odd, but the whole point is it's grimy, it's grungy, it's Nurgle, and it really gives that rotted, decayed effect. And finally, for our greatsword, we're taking Iron Hand Steel. Now I want to keep all that rust and grime in place, but what I wanted to do is to show it is indeed a metallic thing, because when you glaze all those colours on, you lose all of the metallic properties. So what we're going to do is take Iron Hand Steel into a palette, thin it down heavily with Lamy Medium. There's no actual ratio here, it's doing to a milky consistency, just like we did with the Troll Slayer Orange and the Scrag Brown. So get it to that milky consistency and paint it straight across. What's going to happen is the Lamy Medium is going to separate the silver from the metallic flakes. There are 2 different properties within metallic paints, and it's just going to give you that metallic concept, because all the flakes will now be on here. There'll be a slight tint of silver, but all the orange, all the brown, all the highlights, they remain in place. It's just a thin glaze of metallic flakes, and it just shows that this was once indeed a great sword, Unfortunately, Nurgle's has had a good old time ruining it. And finally, for the base, I've opted just for a couple of extra colours. Simple dry brush over the Sterling mud with Carrick stone. Once that was applied, stuck a few tufts on, and it wouldn't be a classic Nurgle model without a bit of Nurgle's rot. Haven't gone overboard, just a few little slops here and there, just to show how disgusting this range is, in a good way. And here we have it. My Lord of Poxes is complete, and I had an absolute blast painting up this miniature, and I'm very grateful to have received it slightly early, so thanks to that seller. And it's nice just to get it done before its official single release launch on Saturday. Now, it's a fantastic model with the potential for some remarkable schemes, and the colours I've personally used really match the Eavy Metal teams, but in a far easier way. And he just looks incredible. I mean, I'd even say beautiful, but it's Nurgle, so probably won't go down the beautiful route. Now, it is such a great character design, and that great sword just gives me Dark Soul vibes. I could easily see this as a classic horror boss in one of those many classic horror franchise games. Now, I feel I've really gone to town on this one too. But the beauty of my painting style is we're talking 5 to 6 hours of painting at the most, and it just looks phenomenal. Now, if the video has helped and inspired, then please support my channel. Give it a like, check out my other videos, and hit that subscribe button. And also have a wander for my Instagram, because supporting me helps me to support you, the awesome Warhammer community, especially by making more tutorials like this. So any support, any love, it's really greatly appreciated. But until the next time, look after yourselves and happy hobbying.